Welcome back to Building a Fighter. My name is Dr. Austin Shane, sports chiropractor in Scottsdale, Arizona. With me, as always, badass strength coach in Denver, Colorado, Alex Friedman.
What's up?
What's up? So, for all y'all at home, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see us. We got them shades on, the stun of shades. It's because we are blocking out the haters because we're doing 5 hot takes that we think are present in strength and conditioning. So, Alex, what's our first one?
The first hot take, and this again, we're going to come at some physical therapists here, but the first hot take is lifting prevents more injuries than physical therapy does, right? And our biggest hot take on that is lifting gives us the structure and the framework to avoid those injuries and to really be robust to them, where physical injury or physical therapy works on the backside to treat the injury and then never quite gets us all the way back, right? Physical therapy done kind of in
I
its
mean,
traditional sense.
easy there. I
I'm
mean,
kind
I'll
no, I
push
said we're
back
coming
on that a
at you.
little
I know
bit.
you do physical therapy,
I'll
but it's
push.
the
I'll
hot
push
take,
back.
right?
Well, legally, I can't say I do physical therapy. I'm not a physical therapist. I do athletic rehab because I'm a sports
Interesting.
chiropractor.
Interesting.
Um, that is the battle of words for whatever reason we're still fighting. Um, but I will push back on physical therapy or rehab doesn't get you back to 100. I know you said traditionally at the end of it, and I appreciate you qualifying that because I do agree with that part. But good sports rehab and physical therapy gets you back to 110, not just 100, because you're showing the functional progression and you're increasing thresholds as you go.
And so that is integrated. That's not a isolated factor. That's integrated, right?
Correct. Yeah. No, and that's kind of like a lead into as somebody that does this, I agree with this. And it's because I do wear both hats, and not just my experience, but also the research shows that typically the stronger you are, the more robust you are. The stronger you are, the more oxygen can get to tissues, the more circulation there are, the faster you recover, the less that joint will be torqued, right? And strength in and of itself is one of the largest, if not the largest metric for quality of life as you age. We know lower body strength actually is the number one thing for quality of life as you age. And time again, we see that we need to be strong, and then everything else is the extra 3, 4, 5%. And
we
where I kind of go with this is I want to say like if you had to pick between strength and conditioning and body work and you have an hour of your time, pick the fucking strength and conditioning unless you had a red line for the last 3 days.
right. I think that's a consistency factor too, right? Like if you're consistently getting body work, you're not making a lasting impression. Like we know by this point, I hope we know that body work and soft tissue manipulation is a temporary strategy, right? It's not something that's going to create lasting change. What creates lasting change is strength through a full range of motion, right? Like the more we can make a joint or tissue go through the full range of motion with some external load, then that creates and cements a little bit better of a movement pattern for us. That better movement pattern makes our tissues and joints more resilient to the extreme angles or torque that we're going to be seeing on the jiu-jitsu mat in an MMA setting when we get hit, right? So that strength and the again, I think it's important to clarify too what type of lifting and what type of strength, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you can immediately poke holes and be like, yeah, but power lifters get hurt all the time, and different goal, different means, right? Strength and
Right.
conditioning is something I'm doing to prepare your body. Powerlifting is a sport, so that's what that's secondary like a 2A hot take is that CrossFit's not an effective strategy for fitness or strength conditioning. CrossFit is a sport in and of itself, right?
This is perfect because Sid wants me to make a video on this for a minute video. So here's our fucking clip, Sid.
Well, here you
So
go.
why
It's
does CrossFit suck if done incorrectly, Alex?
well because it's not scaled to the appropriate person. It's not there to meet a fitness and a strength and conditioning level. It's there to be a sport and to be challenging and for you to compete. It's like saying I'm going to go to join jiu-jitsu so I can get in shape. Like sure, kind of, but that is like tier number 4 or 5 priority in jiu-jitsu is get in shape. CrossFit should be looked at the same way. When I joined a CrossFit gym, I'm not joining a CrossFit gym so I can get fit and be shredded, even though that is a lot of people's motivation. If I want to go to CrossFit, I should join CrossFit because I want to compete at the sport. if you want to compete at the sport, CrossFit's cool. If you're saying I'm doing CrossFit to get into shape or to be more resilient, you're going to break way before you start.
Yep, 100%. It is because, and for the most part, there are good CrossFit coaches out there, right? Like there's good systems. Like OPEX is a
Right.
really good system that I work a lot with their coaches. And there's good CrossFit coaches all over. But for the most part, I agree with Alex. CrossFit in it is, of itself is a sport, right? That
Yeah.
would be like saying that the number one way to get better at wrestling is to box or to kickbox, right? We know there's going to be some carryover, but probably jujitsu would get you a little bit closer to wrestling than kickboxing, right?
Right.
That's basically what this is if we have to pick, we should be a little bit more focalized.
Mm.
Just in that other example, if I want to get better at a grappling sport, I should probably cross train with more grappling, right? Because that allows me to learn how to maneuver my body in different ways through the same, I guess, similar construct or the similar goals.
Yeah.
That's the same thing should be considered with our lifting. Why would I be doing this other separate sport for lifting if I could actually focalize and try to focus on what's going to make me better at my sport in an efficient program?
Yeah, I totally agree. So, um, CrossFit's not the worst cross training in the world. It's surely fucking hard, but it's not gonna make you better or make your body function better, right? I think
Alex,
that's
what's a common time frame for a CrossFit workout?
oh, it's a wad, so you're probably gonna be in the gym for about 60 minutes, Austin.
Does every workout have to be 60 minutes?
Not at all, and that's something that I run my head into the wall against, and is our second hot take. Every workout you do does not need to be 60 minutes. Every strength and conditioning session does not need to be 60 minutes, right? How many, and
Every
if I'm talking,
treatment session doesn't have to be 60 minutes.
man, when I feel like I'm talking to the personal trainers of the room, how many of you look up at the clock, be like, fuck, I got 13 minutes left,
Yep.
right? It's like, you don't have to fill that time. Do the job. Do the job. Be good at the job. Be confident at what you've done if you need that, right? And then walk out. If you're scrambling for a plan and you don't have anything and it's like, oh, I just got to fill this time, then you're fucking up. You're not doing the job. But if I have the plan and I execute the plan and it's 43 minutes into the workout, we're done.
Yep.
There's no, okay, you're not paying. If I'm an athlete, I'm not paying for your 60 minutes.
Right.
I'm paying for a quality product that you're giving me or a quality service, more or less, that's going to get me better at my sport and set me up for success.
Right. Well, I
So
think that's an extremely important thing to say in your intro meeting. Like that needs to be a well discussed, like essentially like pattern or a well discussed idea with the person in front of you that knows like we're here for quality. We're not here for set time frames, right?
mhm.
If I can get the job done in 43 minutes and that's sufficiently what you need to hit your minimal effective dose for the day, then why are we wasting the next 17? You could be doing something else that's going to benefit you. I could be doing something else that's going to benefit me. You're paying me for my expertise, not necessarily just my time. And
Yeah,
in
that's
my
nail.
mind, that's
Yeah.
a good session. Like I get done with good sessions anywhere between 45 minutes to 53 minutes typically.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's nail on the head too. Is like communicate, right? Hey, we're getting into a little bit of a hypertrophy block where you got to put some weight on. We're gonna be doing upwards of 5 sets on some shit, so you might be here hour 15, hour
Yeah,
20, right? Like
100%. Like
in
football lifts, those are
in
normally
very
90 minutes.
in various contexts, yeah, you just communicate that with the person in front of you. It's like, hey, I love what you said. We're here for a quality job, not just to fill 60 minutes, right? And so communicating that up front, I think can skip a lot of your time barriers, but we get so set in this way in our like privatized strength and conditioning, whatever industry, that it's like, I'm going to block out 60 minutes for this person in the session. It's like, what if I want somebody has a like an energy system goal? I need to get them more metabolically fit, right? Especially working on the aerobic system. That shit is not getting done at the end of a lift, right? We need to budget out more time or set aside another workout time or something. So it's just like be more flexible with that. And the 60 minute constraint is such a constraint of like business time and industry standards. It's not a indication of, oh, quality. Like I perfectly manicured that workout to end at 59 minutes and 44 seconds. Right? Like, fuck all that. Doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me.
But I mean, the other thing too, I guess, to consider in this is for what we're talking about, it is more about the quality than quantity, right? Some of
Mm-hmm.
these other different ways to do it, while we don't or at least I don't necessarily agree with like being in a time schedule, like CrossFit, for example. There's a reason
Mhm.
why it is 60 minutes. It's more about the community than it is about the proper programming, right?
Yeah.
It's about being around your friend for an hour and hanging out, and then they sit in the fucking locker room for the next 30 minutes
I was gonna
after.
say, dude, that's the most sometimes the most important part of the lift for people, or even the
Yeah,
training session, right? They sit around and hang out at the gym.
right.
That's low key. That's how you check if a gym has a good culture. If you got motherfuckers hanging out there for 30, 45 minutes after practice, you got a good culture. It's somewhere people want to be. If
Exactly.
everybody splits as soon as they can, or there's nobody hanging out, sitting on the benches talking shit, blah blah blah, they don't want to be there.
Yep, 100%. So, like, that is an important aspect. It's just for me, when we're talking about strength and conditioning for athletes, where there's a goal in place, it's not just about hanging out with your friends, right? You're there to get
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't have to be 60 minutes. Sometimes, if it's just a mobility session, sometimes you just got to move your body. It's 25. What's wrong with 25 minutes if that's the minimal effective dose?
Mm-hmm.
Anything over the top of that, I'm adding stress onto your system that probably doesn't need to be there. You then need to recover from. So I'm putting you at a bigger deficit because even if it is a quote unquote restoration lift, that's still just stress on the body, right? If it's a PT
Mm-hmm.
session, that's still stress on the body. It's just a different type of stress.
Dude, and yeah, and leading into our next hot take, like sometimes those aren't even worth it. When you're talking about restoration sessions or like deload weeks, right? And you
Yeah.
train an athlete at 6 a.m., bro, your deload is to sleep in.
Yep. Yeah. Your
That is a
deload is there
deload,
is no 6 a.m. lift.
right? So, third, I'm gonna have to hog all the spotlight here. Third hot take, Austin. Eating a healthy breakfast is more important than getting to your 6 a.m. lift.
Correct.
You feel like that?
Correct.
Please elaborate why you feel that
That's
way.
all I got to say about that. No, I 100% agree because that means that we're probably hitting the big three, right? It's I prefer nutrition over extra work, right?
Hmm.
I prefer a properly nutriized. What's the word right there?
Fueled, maybe
Fueled.
fueled,
Yeah, I guess fueled. I would prefer a
nourished,
proper fueled.
nourished.
Sorry, I'm thinking too far down the road, Alex. My properly fueled athlete's always going to be better than an extra worked athlete, right? They're going to have the energy systems in place. They're going to have the energy in their body to be able to create adaptations. Two, typically, and this is especially for our wrestling coaches, those high school, college wrestling coaches. I mean, if you're coaching in college, you probably wrestled in college. Tell me, if you were a college athlete, were you going to bed at
No,
9 p.m. every night? Because
no,
I
no,
can
no,
almost
no,
fucking
no,
promise you
no, no,
you
no.
weren't. Right? They're out there having fun. They're in college. Or even if they're not having fun, maybe they're the studious type. They're
Yeah.
fucking studying for their tests. They have double majors. They're in the honors program, whatever it may be. They need fucking sleep, right? Their workload is massively high. So I would say, unless that is literally the only way you can fit lifting into your program, that it should be done at their earliest convenience, but it is not a 6 a.m. lift that everybody has to get up at fucking 5 o'clock to get to, and that's putting them at 6 to 5 hours of sleep that night, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I mean, you kind of took a micro view on this. I'll take like a macro view, right? And I think something we can talk to that is like a healthy lifestyle and a more balanced stress scale in a person's life will help them in their athlete life, right? If I'm getting adequate sleep, if I'm, you know, coming home to a relatively stress free environment, if I'm not grinding from 6 a.m. to 9, 10 p.m. every day, whether I'm working an extra job, whether I'm training 4 times a day, like the healthy lifestyle, I think will get you better training results than the constant grind mode that some people get into. Time and place for the grind mode, absolutely. Been there, done that. I think there's a lot of merit to it. But once we get there, we have to evolve from that. Okay. My best schedule. Okay. I know that when I wake up in the morning, I want to sit and have a cup of coffee for at least 20 or 30 minutes by myself. Okay. That's something I know about myself. That's how I'm going to get my day started. Taking that away from me and putting my lift 30 minutes earlier would not do me favors. It would make me hectic and stressed, and now I'm getting less out of my day. You talked about being fueled and appropriately recovered. I think the other thing is being in a really good mind state for your
Mhm.
workout, right? If I'm rushing, hustling, I got my 6 a.m. lift, I'm showing up at 6:04 every day. I'm not in a good mindset to start that lift and get a true benefit from it. I'll get the work done. Absolutely, it'll happen. But I would argue it could be of more quality if we set up better routines throughout the day.
Right. The work would be lacking intention, if you
Yeah,
will, which we know
absolutely.
is never going to be as good. If we're going for a power metric, there's no intention, you're not hitting your velocity of the bar, right? So that basically makes the session worthless.
Right. And so I guess that goes into like proper, just being an adult, being able to
Yeah.
manage your life and stress, right? Like, and I know a ton of people have problems with this, right? It's not, there's a whole self help category in Barnes and Noble for a reason, right? And so I don't, and I think fighters, especially, right? Fighting, if you choose this lifestyle, this pathway, it's a hard road to walk, right?
Mhm.
And so I think getting some of those personal life things nailed the fuck down can help you set more intention with your training and can help you, really be intentional with what you're doing and genuinely gain the benefit of it rather than just being there. Right. I think showing up is half the battle is like what everybody says. Okay. You showed up, you did 50% of the work. If I show up and I'm just content with 50%, I'm not getting better. And
100%.
so
Well,
that's, yeah,
and the
that's my
other thing
rant on
too.
that.
Well, the thing on that's your rant, and you're sticking to it.
Yep.
The big thing too here is you have to get out of the mindset of having to do more and actually
Yeah.
doing less is okay. And I feel like that's the main part of eating a healthy breakfast is greater than a 6 a.m. lift, right? Is being comfortable with the process and trusting that the plan you have in place doesn't need a 6 a.m. lift, right?
Yeah.
I know as an athlete myself, that was the hardest part for me is I was a grinder and
Yeah.
that made me feel more confident. But it's more or less probably because I didn't trust the process.
True.
It wasn't necessarily that was what's best for me. It's that I didn't trust the process of getting better if I wasn't doing that extra workout. So
Yeah.
a lot of this can be actually kind of managed by having a good coaching relationship with your athletes and getting them to understand what the process actually is.
True. True. Yeah, and I think that works both ways too because there are athletes that have the opposite around. It's like, "Oh, I'm not going to do anything work and it'll be fine because I'm talented." Right? It's
Yeah,
like,
Casey
you know,
Anderson.
yeah, as much as that's not probably a conscious thought in their mind, that's what they're telling themselves like this is just going to work because it always works, right?
Yeah,
And so yeah, setting your expectations and letting your athletes know like this is quality, not quantity of grinding or not. You can skip this workout, blah blah blah. Like we have to really set those expectations, and I think that can lead to a better outcome, a better ultimate pathway than just continually harping on the grinding mindset or on anything else.
speaking about a mindset that needs to be changed, our next hot take number 4 is you don't need Olympic lifts to develop power.
Hmm.
And this is my little rant here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, it's not that they're bad, right? But it's the same way we talked about powerlifting. Olympic lifting is its own sport, right?
Mhm.
There are technical aspects to where if you want to do them correctly, that you want to offload the joints and load up the correct joints in the right ways, it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes dedication.
Mhm.
I don't, if you're a coach at home, I hope you're raising your hand and you agree with me here. I haven't met a combat athlete that prefers to be in the weight room than on the mat or in the ring. Every
Right.
single one of them fucking, they don't, I guess they don't hate it, but if they had to pick 9 times out of 10, they would rather be punching their friends than lifting weight. And to me, that means that I need to focus their attention on exactly what's going to get them better, no more, no less, right?
Yeah.
If I can develop the exact same outcome with a much less technical lift, I am going to do that. That's where our trap bar jump shrugs take place. That's where our forceful triple extension, those are where we can use kettlebells to accomplish the same goal that don't take as much technique as a clean and jerk, if you will, or as a snatch. And that's not to say they are bad lifts because I think they do have a place. I put them in my football players' lifts because they have the time and they love the weight room more. But when I go push comes to shove, when I only have 2 to 3 hours with these athletes a week, do I want to spend 30 minutes of that trying to teach somebody a clean? I say no.
Yeah. I'll come back at you and I agree with a lot of your points. The only time I have my MMA athletes do Olympic lifts is when they tell me that they like them.
Correct.
They
Yeah.
feel better when they do them and then they can walk the talk too because there are athletes that come out. I love
They
I love
I love
cleaning,
a clean. It's a
and then
fucking
you watch
reverse
them do it,
curl.
and you're like, "What the fuck was that? Well, that wasn't a clean. You love something else, bro."
Yeah. Like,
Um,
bro, you got strong ass forearms. That ain't
but,
clean.
but no, then they walk the talk, and like, and it is something they practiced in a previous training cycle, lifetime, whatever. And it's like, all right, that's your fucking jam. Let's roll with it,
Yeah.
right? And like, and I think you can gain a lot of benefit from those. And like, I'm one of those athletes. I like cleans and jerks, and not so much snatches because my shoulder mobility isn't there. But I
Fair.
like some of those Olympic lifts, but that's a personal aspect of me. That's not, oh, I like the Olympic lifts. Everybody has to Olympic lift to be as good an athlete as me. No, not at all. Right. In fact, there are a million people that are better athletes than me that do not know how to Olympic lift.
Hmm.
Right. Because at the end of the day, like Olympic lifts can be a really good weapon in your arsenal, but only like any other weapon, only if your athletes believe it.
Yep.
So yeah,
And
Olympic lifts
only
are
in the right context.
they're not an
You,
integral part to a strength and conditioning program. They can be, but I could say the same thing about a back squat. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be in anybody's program. It can be, and if you teach it well and execute it well with the right person, it can be important. But most of the time, in a lot of contexts, doesn't have to be applicable.
100%. And for me, I guess a main point with the Olympic lifts and why I do like them is they learn how to develop tension, right? You
Yeah.
learn how to develop tension, you learn how to catch. Like a lot of people don't know this. Like my number one superpower lift, I've said it on here, is pull-ups, right? Number two for me is a snatch because I'm actually kind of good at it. It fits my body proportions well. I've always been good at a snatch. I actually used to be able to snatch as much as I can clean because I'm so fucking bad at cleans. um, but that's one of those things that
Oh, that's
gave me a
awesome.
lot of confidence. And just like Alex was saying, that's why I program it for myself. And the one point that I will give to the Olympic lifts is the bracing strategy of Olympic lifts. There's nothing that is better to compare it to grappling because you have to develop such an instantaneous load of rigidity as you're catching a clean or as you're catching a snatch that it's almost impossible to replicate, or at least I haven't been able to replicate it very well.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there in that instantaneous, but similar to something that you argue about before, the athletes that do that in the most biomechanically efficient and proper position, the most often have the most success,
Correct.
right? And so, like, I was on this thing a long time. It was like wrestlers, okay, we don't hit these 90-degree angles, we don't hit these perfect biomechanic positions like we're taught in the weight room, blah blah blah. But like, then you watch a lot of the good athletes, and they do. They
Bro,
just hit
Jordan
them.
Burroughs put up a. Did you see his tutorial he put up?
Uh-uh.
That Ray. So he put up a cut double tutorial where he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah.
going over spine angles and everything.
Damn.
And I'm like, oh, that's a perfect hinge. You're
Yeah.
basically doing like almost like a broad jump as he's going through.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. You watch him, he like launches himself like a missile on his blast double. And like that's exactly how you perform a broad jump. That's exactly if we put you a little more vertical, that's exactly how you perform a trap bar deadlift, right? Like those angles do happen. They just happen in different orientations.
Right.
But accomplishing those positions leads into a kind of our final and last hot take here, where what you do in the weight room does not matter. And end of statement, right? It doesn't matter what you do in the weight room. Okay. Super ironic coming from us. What matters way more, in my opinion, is how you do what you do. If you, whatever you do, if you do it well, if you do Olympic lifting, if you do back squatting, if you do whatever thing that Austin and I may deem less appropriate or less applicable, if you do it super fucking well, I'm cool with it. It's good, right? That matters way more than like what specifically you choose or what intervals or what the actual like meat is.
Oh, at the end of the day, it's not about me or Alex or Sid or anybody at Building a Fighter, anybody, any coach anywhere. It is about you. It's about
Yeah.
your athletic career. It's about what you feel is going to get you to the top, and you have to trust the people around you to get you there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so some people have really like John Jones, for example. He went up to heavyweight. He has a guy that actually trains Henry down here. I've met him, nice guy. Me and him train relatively separate, like differently. Guess what? He trained John Jones. John Jones is a world champ, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same way I train my athletes, but guess what? It fucking worked. So obviously, I don't have the monopoly on good ideas here, right? But a lot of people like to think they do. And at the end of the day, hard work is the thing that matters once you step into the room. Intention is the thing that matters when you step into the room. Exercises don't, right? Whether we're doing a split squat, a rear foot elevated split squat, a lunge, a fucking barbell back squat, all of those are just patterns to force adaptation in your body. It goes better when you pick the right solution for the right body. Because
Mhm.
just like I don't do well, my low back doesn't do well with back squats, I have athletes that do well with back squats. We know that they can load those patterns up. So, in that same context, if I try to do what works for me on an athlete that needs to be progressed in a different way, I'm not going to get the adaptation I'm looking for to fit the person in front of me. So, that is my diet, or I guess monologue for
Mhm.
what you do is way less important than how you do it and why you're doing it.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's so eloquently said. I cannot follow it up, Austin.
God, I'm fucking good, Alex. Fucking good. All right,
Any
y'all.
bonus hot takes, Austin?
Any bonus hot takes? I mean, not I guess a little bit contrary to what I just said. I think less than 1% of athletes need to barbell back squat as opposed to other options.
Yeah.
I think it's a very specific body style needs a barbell to get the same results that we can get from anything else,
Yeah.
just because it's so compressive on the discs. Um, Another hot take, which is more or less like I feel common in coaching, but not common for athletes, is just because somebody has a lot of Instagram followers doesn't mean they're a good coach.
No,
Because
not at all.
so many people think that followers equates to coaching ability,
Yeah.
and that I some of the best coaches I've ever met don't even have YouTube or Instagram.
Yeah, 100%. My last bonus hot take, and this kind of goes back at strength coaches, is I think strength coaches talk all the time about how we spend the most time with athletes and we're the closest with them. We understand them. From the last 3 years of me coaching wrestling, bullshit. I think sports specific coaches, if you're a good sports specific coach, you get to know your athletes really well, and you kind of share a joint experience with them. And sure, some good strength coaches do bond more with athletes, but the sports specific coaches, I don't think we can undercut them and continue to say that like strength conditioning, we spend more time with the athletes, we understand them better. It's like, no, good sport coaches know their athletes too.
100%. Yeah, I think it comes down to more character is much more important than time spent.
And it's exactly what we just said. It's how you do it, not just what you do.
Fuck yeah. That should be the name of this podcast outside of Hot Takes with Shades.
Hot takes with shades, baby.
That should be a new segment. We should do this like once a month. I like this.
I
Anyways,
did like the energy, that's for sure.
yes. Fuck yeah. If you guys at home are listening and you like this, please let us know. We're going to have surveys on our Spotify. So that is an option we can have now where we can ask questions and have polls. So we're starting to throw that in. If you listen on Spotify, please interact with those because that's going to get us into their algorithm better. It is all about letting us talk to more people if you like us. If you don't like us, fuck you. If you guys got to get in touch with us, all of our information is in the show notes. If you're looking for our programs, so we're about when this gets released, we'll be about 2 weeks away from the beta or from finishing the beta sequence of our app, and the Building a Fighter app will be live. Going through the last final details, and this thing's looking sexy, folks. So it'll be available for free with free resources on both the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. And there's also our programs built in there. There's food trackers built in there. We talked about this last week, so we're all good. But as always, Dr. Austin Shane.
Alex Friedman.
And we